started burning inside because I was like, fuck this shit. So I just took the person out and I was like, I'm just going to tell you something. At the end of the day, you work for me. I don't work for you.
Welcome to the CEO Stylist podcast, where two unlikely CEOs come together and rewrite the narrative of what it means to be a CEO stylist. Yovanka and Kirsten Harris are on a mission, giving stylists permission to join the movement of artists breaking the mould of what is meant to be for the hair industry and creating the life and schedule of their dreams. Fast forward through many failed attempts and lessons learned in the process, it's time to level up the playing field. It's time to call BS on what's been done before. Yovanka and Kirsten are ready to share it all, defying the odds of the industry and teaching you how to do the same.
Welcome back to the CEO Stylist. Hello.
Hi, friend.
I feel like it's been so long since we've sat in this chair.
It feels like forever, doesn't it?
It really
We
does.
had a little bit of a break.
We have had a break. We've come back. We're sporting tans. We'll talk about that in a minute. But today's topic, work, burnout and recharge, which is a great time of year because it's the beginning of the year. Well,
Exactly.
Not
And
really.
for us
We're
as
kind
well,
of like 1 month in.
1 month in.
Yeah.
And we've also just come back from a holiday together for the first time with our husbands.
Yeah.
We're away for 8 days in Bali.
Yes. So that's kind of the recharge point of the work burnout and recharge. So what I wanted to say up front was we are already more than a month into
New Year.
New Year. And if that's any indication of how fast this year is going to fly by,
Crazy.
yeah, hang on to your hats.
Crazy.
So work, burnout and recharge, where do we start? Because
Well,
I feel like we've got lots to contribute to this one.
We really do. And I think I get so many messages. I think this is a topic that, we've a few people have reached out. I have a lot of mums that reach out and they're always questioning, how do you do it all? I have a lot of mums who are also, coming off maternity leave that want to go back into the workplace. And I can so relate because that was so me, probably why I took so long to get back out there, because that was my burning question. How am I going to be able to do it all? What do I need to sacrifice? So I think this topic will help a lot of, even young ones and mums. I think it's as a female, right?
Of course. And there's different perspectives on it because we're talking, you're coming from the perspective of, let's say, a new parent and a mum and re-entering into the workforce.
Smaller kids.
And then, let's just look at anyone in a work environment that's balancing work, let's say. How are you? Oh my God, I'm so busy. And that kind of is a trigger for me.
100%.
And I've come to realise why it's a trigger, because I think generally everyone's busy and everyone's tired. I know I absolutely pissed my husband off where
It's
he's
just what
like,
you prioritise.
are you okay? I'm just tired. He goes, you're always tired. And remember, I was like, yeah, I know, I am always tired. But there's a difference between being tired and recovering after a night's sleep and actually addressing burnout, which is an entirely different, and I've been there.
Same.
I've been there, and sometimes in this busy world we kind of forget those.
So true.
Signs.
I remember, going back to when I had a moment when I stopped working, because it's the same thing, and I felt myself fall back into those patterns recently before we went to Bali last year. And I read this book called Bored and Brilliant. She was like this, high-paced journalist who was working broadcasting journalism, and how she struggled and transitioned when she had her kid, because she had one of those babies that she could push in a pram. She had to go for long walks. The baby didn't like any sound, didn't like any music, didn't like any activity, so she really struggled with it because, we're so conditioned to be busy, like you're saying, and productive, that what happens the minute that your mind wanders? And it's actually, that's the whole point of this. It's actually not a bad thing. And I think also for us going on this trip to Bali together, it was probably my first holiday since I started my business like 7 years ago that I actually checked out.
You really did.
I really did.
I'm here to say you actually did. I don't know what you did in your hotel room at night.
Actually, for me, and I'm not going to lie, I did probably about 10% work. But that's a big step for me. And I don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
I still struggle with it because it's a little bit, for me, it's a little bit the way that I've been raised. I've just always been around, hardworking, business-orientated family as well. And I think also coming back to being a Capricorn, it was just my brain was always on, always needing to do something. So, and after coming back from Bali last time, it's been a massive shift for for me, it's shifting that sacrifice for me, which I understood that getting into business, it really is. That's all it is, because what works for you, it doesn't work for the next person.
And it is hard to switch off. Like I don't think that's, there's no persecution around we're on holidays, but let's be honest, when you have your own
100%.
business, it is very difficult. And not even when you have your own business, people in high-powered roles that are paid the big bucks, sometimes they've got no choice. They have to plug in at some point. So that's why I'm careful using that word balance. What did you say about balance?
It's work-life integration.
Yeah, work-life integration.
And like I said, when I first started this journey, for me, for 2 years, and I think, again, this goes to, it depends where you are on your journey. So if you're going to be starting out in business or getting back into it and you want to build yourself back up, you're going to have to put in the extra, but it can still be fluid within that, scope of what you want to achieve, right? So for me, in the beginning, I really didn't have, I was that typical, hairdresser coming out from over pleasing, over compensating, not having boundaries in place, because to me, when you build, you got to build and there's no limitations, right? Because I was on the floor. I didn't have admin. I didn't have the extra help. So I was bottlenecking. But, I remember for the first couple of years, I was that one going to bed, putting the kids to bed, and then still working for 3-4 hours, going to bed at 12:1.
Yeah.
But how long do you think that's going to last?
Well, I can tell you how long it lasts, because I know that you and I'm closer to 50 than what you are, right? We talk about age, but jokes aside, as you get older, it's difficult to sustain that on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, you can maybe able to do a late night here or there, but
correct.
to do that every night
Consecutively, yeah.
I used to work until from sun up till sundown. I was addicted to work.
Same.
I'm sure if my husband was here to say it, he would back this up. He said, "Fuck yeah, I was addicted to work," and that's so unhealthy. And I didn't know the signs that I know now. But I was addicted to work, and I always wonder what now, being older and wiser, what was that message I was sending myself about always having? I was scared to go
no self-care.
I was scared
100%.
to go on holidays. I was scared to leave my business.
It is. It's so hard. And, I was so proud of this holiday because it was the first time that I gave myself permission because, again, I've got 12, 14 staff, my kids that I left behind, my mum who's looking after my kids. It's that fucking guilt. It's that guilt. Oh, my God, are the girls going to be okay? Are my kids going to be okay? It's that no one prepares you for that guilt. I know we've spoken about it before in other podcasts, mum guilt, but I really had to talk myself off the ledge and be like, no, I deserve it. I need this. I had to really say that mantra a couple of times in order for me to wake up to not have anxiety over it.
Yeah.
Do you know? Because, and it was the first time I was so proud. I was like, thank God we've put systems and processes and we've automated so much stuff in the business that, finally people were so respectful. We let our stockers know. I let my team know. Like I said, I still always have to check into certain elements of the business, and that's, where I can plug in. I know where I can plug in and where I can plug out, and it's like half an hour here, half an hour there.
Yeah.
But if I went on this holiday and I had to work 4 or 5 hours, what's the fucking point?
What's the point of being away?
What's the point of being away?
But doing an hour here or there, that's what that was probably my way of being able to manage it. Do an hour and then...
And it was fine. We checked in. We got to enjoy the day. We got to have our breakfast juice. Do you want to share what our breakfast juice was?
Really? Are we really?
Absolutely.
Okay, so truth bomb.
I'm sure everyone else in our position would have done the same.
So, yeah, I'm bringing back my team.
10 a.m. breakfast.
Breakfast juice was 10 a.m. It was pineapple juice with maybe a shot or two of Malibu.
Yep,
so that's right. I said Malibu. It was great.
It was so good. And a Cosmo. But given the fact, look, we're not big drinkers. We're really not. We had a few drinks by the pool during the day. At night time, we'd go for dinner. We'd go back with our husbands.
Yeah.
Watch movies, connect together.
It was low-key.
It was so low-key. It was actually so much fun.
So do we want to talk about the burnout part?
Let's talk about the burnout.
Generally,
Yeah.
I can definitely come from a place of experience. I know you can.
Mm-hmm.
We're both mums. We're both career-driven. I think the biggest lesson that I had, I definitely suffered burnout in my late 20s and early 30s. Didn't have the resources that are available now where you could literally Google... what does burnout look like?
You just had to put up and shut up.
I actually think it used to be referred to as a nervous breakdown, and I'm very cautious when saying that. It's the same camp as mental health. Are you
For sure.
mental? You're just having
A breakdown.
a a day, or have you got a diagnosed mental health issue, which is completely different. So, and that's not me, but I now know what the symptoms were.
So can I ask you,
recognizing the symptoms of burnout.
did you experience this before kids, during and
Yes.
after? Like, was it different
It was before
Okay.
kids, definitely, and I'd say there was an episode after as well, to a less extent. But I was addicted to work. So, and to the point, like, jokes aside, I didn't know I was pregnant with
I
my
remember you
son.
saying.
And that's how out of touch I was. And that's like, people go, how does that happen? But that's how disconnected I was with my own body. I didn't even recognize my body. And it wasn't until I took a moment and the doctor saying, well, you're pregnant. I'm like, how the fuck did that happen? I mean, I know how that happens, but how did I miss the signs of being pregnant?
And you found out you were pregnant when?
11 weeks.
11 weeks.
Yeah. So that.
No sickness? Or did you
I
completely
was
ignore
sick.
it?
I ignored
Wow.
it all. I was so disconnected, and that was a real wake up for me.
Because back then, I guess you just became accustomed to, if you're tired, you had no one to complain to, you just had to
Yeah.
get on with it. And you
Yeah.
guys had your own business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who were you
absolutely.
gonna-
Team. I was traveling a lot. But it was, that was my wake up call to go, holy shit, Kirsten, you really actually don't have a handle on this. You think you've got it all together, and you don't. And it wasn't until, like, that was forced for me because, you're in a physical disposition at some point when you're carrying,
It just,
You're
something takes
responsible
over,
for another life.
yeah, and you have no control.
got no control. That was like a real wake up for me. So the signs for me were, and put pregnancy aside, because when I mapped it out, I went, okay, this had been going on for a while. No physical exercise, lack of motivation, it's not motivation, it was lack of productivity. It was actually
Sure,
I was
clarity.
working, I was doing the hours, but I'd lost focus.
Yeah.
Eating whatever, sleeping terribly, putting on weight, no exercise, like, things that I used to enjoy, I was no longer enjoying. Everything was just this single focus. And it wasn't even like the business was in a stressful situation. I'd got myself into that because of a message I'd told myself about who I had to be in that business.
Sure.
I had to be the first one there. I had to be the last one to leave. I had to have all the answers. I had, like, all these messages I'd told my 27-year-old
conditioning,
self.
yeah.
It was scary. And I think now, like, being double the age,
So you're saying back then you still didn't recognise it? You only recognised it as you got older?
I recognised it as I've got older. Yeah. And then I've gone, okay, the
Needs
more
to
I've read
change.
up on it, because I don't know, some people could have called it, I didn't have a nervous breakdown. I know what that looks like as well. But it was just really, I think the scary part for me was actually finding out I was pregnant. I'm like, how did I miss this?
And can I ask you also, because now I know you so well, and I see you and James, have probably a lot more of a social life than me and Vlad.
Yeah.
Did you have a social life back
No.
then on top of doing?
No.
Because I was like, I look at you guys now, and I'm like, I don't know how you socialise
No.
so much. But,
Single focus was...
and that was one of your
And
sacrifices.
that's so unhealthy. It should, and to me, because I love socializing and my friendships are so important, as family is, why sacrifice that because you're busy or your single focus is your work? It'll be there. So it was just like recognizing those signs. I am such an advocate for health now, as you know.
And wellness is such a big part.
It really is. So it's like, what were the causes of burnout? Causes of burnout come from stressful. Like, I think my key message to listeners is there's a thing called being in a stressful situation where you, like, it's just ad hoc. It happens and you can move through it. There's another thing where you're sitting in a toxic, stressful environment.
And you're
You've
doing
gotta get
nothing
out
to change.
Yeah, you've got to get out of that. Either change it. If you're the head of that, if you are the business owner and that exists in your business, you're responsible for it. Like, that's hard hitting, but I believe that to be the case. You got to, even if you're not the cause of it, you are the cause of it by default because you own the business. So if there is a cancer of sorts in your business,
You've got to reflect on yourself.
You got to deal with
I
that
agree.
and get rid of it. So that, I think that's a big thing, a component for burnout.
And I think,
Divorce.
like you said, I was just going to say your relationships suffer, whether it's with your
Divorce.
husband, whether it's with your kids,
Yeah.
your friends, like there's cracks, right?
Yeah, there's
and
crack,
it really, really
divorce.
starts. Then you're
Babies, having babies, like it does change, especially new mums, coming back to what you said at the beginning. New mums like that. Do you remember that transition when you're like still, I don't know about you, but I know before I had Tristan, it's like this kid's going to blend in with our life. Like we go
Hell no.
out and we do this and we go away and no, it's just going to blend in. Like this is not going to crash me.
change, but it does, of course. And look at now, especially with, I know, when I first had David 14, 15 years ago, everything was so much more regimented.
Yeah.
You couldn't go out because they had to have their sleep at 7:30.
Yeah, that's it.
And
Don't knock
even
on the
now,
door.
don't knock on the door,
Yeah.
don't go out, can't leave if you don't have and I feel like it's gotten worse and worse.
Do you feel like that adds to that
Absolutely.
stressful-
It adds to that. It adds to that disillusionment of, like you said, that they should be blended in with your schedule a little bit. Because if you fall in that trap, then you're going to be stuck in that trap
Yeah.
as well. And then you've got, like, by default, you've got no one else to blame but yourself.
Yeah, that's
Right?
it. Yeah.
So it really depends. That's why I wouldn't want to bash any situation or anyone, because you do it, but then when you look at hindsight, you're like, maybe I shouldn't have done it. Maybe I could have done this
Yeah.
to make it easier on, the
And
situation.
I don't want to go down the mum path because let's face it, every baby and every baby's needs are different. I was very fortunate that I had two babies that were really quite placid, but they didn't have reflux. They didn't have
all that.
issues, but I've seen that and how that alone.
But like you're saying, because
Could
we're
cause
so,
issues.
so many of us now, women especially, have to go back to work. You've got no
I had to
option.
go back to work.
You had to go back to
Yeah.
work, but now,
Even more so, I can't imagine it today having a baby in
but like you just said, what happens if your baby's not sleeping? What happens if,
reflux, feeding around the clock,
and you see now, if we're at that point where we're not sleeping again, not because of baby, because we think we're going perimenopausal, but it fucks with you. Like normally, sleep is my weapon.
Yeah.
If I don't have sleep, I walk around like a drongo, like,
I think
what's
sleep
happening?
is everyone's weapon, though, isn't it? Fundamentally,
Sleep is everyone's weapon. But back in the day, they didn't make, wherever you worked, they didn't make allowances for it.
No.
So that's why I just want to shift like the direction a little bit, and to say, someone, that's in like hairdressing. That's why I'm so passionate about having that flexibility for me and for my girls within our schedule.
Tell me more about that.
So with us, 3 years ago, I made a decision, or even 2 years ago, to get off the floor once I started to employ a couple more hairstylists, obviously because I had to get off to be able to go into more education and CEO of, the entire businesses that I have. But I was like, now I need to, because I was getting older, I couldn't pull those late nights. I couldn't work till 8, 9 o'clock. Started to get sloppy at 5 o'clock. And then,
Burnout.
my work suffered. Even because I'm so detailed and detail-oriented, I quickly realised what was going on, and I decided to, abolish that mindset of hairdressers need to work this amount of hours or
Yeah.
this time.
Or the product you're talking, and more so in those hours, the productivity.
100%. But, talking about working, Thursday nights, talking about working any night doesn't just mean Thursday nights, because our salon's open Wednesday, Thursday nights and Saturdays. My kids started to play sport, so I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I need to make a shift and give myself permission, because the girls in America had figured it out. They were all preaching, they were doing 4 days a week. And because it was a little bit of a different system over there, a lot of them went on wages. They were on that commission or booth rent structure, as whereas here we didn't have that option because we're still tied into the award and 38 hours. But I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make it work for me. So that's when I made the shift. I'm not going to work nights and weekends. I'm going to do Monday to Friday.
And how's the flexibility with coming back to what you're saying about your team?
Well, my team, I'll get to that in a sec.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where when I started to take team members on, because what happened in the beginning, when I started to try to make that transition, I wasn't communicating what I was doing. And I had a particular staff member going, why are you leaving work early? Like questioning me why I'm leaving work early on a Saturday, not realising that, first of all, I'm the boss. I can do what I want. But then they're looking, because they're always looking to you what you're doing, right? So I really had to sit down and say, look, me being a mum comes first. Everything else, I'm creating this opportunity for not just me, but for everyone else. So for me, this is what's going to work for me and for my schedule. I need to be able to start early which I do anyway. I wake up, between 5 o'clock. I get my few hours in before the girls get here. And if I need to run a few errands for myself or for the kids, I'll do that, because I had staff question me with that too. Remember when I had one staff member and I had to change an appointment, and because it was a long weekend, and I forgot that we had a meeting. We got back to work on the Monday. We usually had a meeting on the Monday, and I was like, fuck, I needed to just go to an appointment. And I sent out a group message saying, hey guys, I need to change the meeting. I need to run out and I need to change it to Tuesday morning. Came back and there was a staff member who had an issue with it. Then went to, as they do, they have an issue with it because they don't see you at work. They don't physically see you at work. So they're like, but I'm here working. You should be here working. You're the boss. You need to be here as well. So this particular person went and said something to another staff member. And I got back and she told me that they weren't happy that I changed the meeting. And I started burning inside because I was like, fuck this shit. So I just took the person out and I was like, I'm just going to tell you something. At the end of the day, you work for me. I don't work for you. Yeah. If I want to sit on that couch and pick my nose, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. I don't need to tell you my schedule or and this is where people forget, this person didn't have kids. Doesn't know that I'm already hanging on by a thin thread. I don't get weekends to myself.
Yeah, that's right.
So if I needed to change an appointment, I don't need to explain myself to anyone. When you guys go home and before you're here, I'm working.
Yeah, you're already doing it.
Because you don't see it. And because, as a boss or as a business owner, you sometimes forget to articulate it. But you're always judged for it, and that's what was happening a lot. So I really had to, when I employed someone next, I was like, this is how it works within the framework of my business. Don't forget what I'm doing to create that flexibility for myself. As hairdressers, you guys have that flexibility too, within reason.
So talk about that.
So that's where we had a team meeting and I was like, here's the options. You guys have 38 hours in the work week. They're your hours. You make it work for you. I don't care what you do. I don't care what days you do it, and I don't care what time. If you want to come in at 7 o'clock and you want to work 7 till 5, 7 till 6, you build your clients around that schedule. You don't want to work Saturday, you can work during the week.
Is there a caveat to that?
Well, not really, because again, it's 38 hours. Are you talking about the rates on Saturday?
No, I'm talking about productivity.
Because we would work the clients around it. So with hair clients, you'll just manage. That's a beautiful part.
So the other part to this is, as long as you've got clients booked at 7 a.m,
100%.
Don't show up and sit at the.
No, what I'm saying is, the beauty
if the demand's there.
The demand's there because a lot of us were booked out, and the clients.
Right.
Instead of waiting for clients to find you, the system that we created, we were picking and choosing what clients we wanted to work with. So we got to a point that we can pick and choose what hours we wanted to work.
Interesting.
And through email marketing and communicating it. And don't forget, we also do a lot of mums. We had so many mums put their hand up to come in earlier.
So do you think that this is something that could translate to any business? Instead of us being conditioned to general trading hours, that 9 to 5.
Good question. So here's what started to happen within my business as well, because I've got 2 separate businesses, 3 or 4 or 5 now. So I've got YL Salon, YL Extensions, YL Education, and now we've got the podcast, which is essentially is a whole nother business. So what started to happen, YL Salon, because the girls were doing, they started to do 4 days a week. They were only working Wednesday to Saturday. Now, when I say only, it makes it sound like only 4 hours, but the girls were pulling 2 12-hour days, Friday 9 till 5 or 5:30, and Saturday 9 till 3. It's still 38 hours.
Yeah.
So what happened, the previous staff member that I had in admin started ruminating in her head, and so she had Sarah's role, which was like education admin. And admin hours are strictly from 8:30 to 5 because her role was very different to all the other roles.
Right.
Because she had to cater to
external needs.
needs, ordering, customers order, salon orders. So it was just a very, very different role. So she started ruminating and she started being like, oh, maybe if the girls are working 4 days a week, maybe I want to work 4 days a week.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because again, when you give too much flexibility, I think people just take it to a whole nother, to a whole nother level.
The difference is that the girls in the salon, your team in the salon, they're income generating.
They're income generating.
Where admin
client
is not.
Is not.
Yeah.
So that was, and she brought up a point, and we had a meeting over it, and we just said, like, this is the role. Like, at the end of the day, you might see the girls working 4 days a week, but what you don't see is that they're here till 9 o'clock 2 nights of the week.
Yeah, you've already.
So you know what I'm saying? People always see, they have an idea, but they don't really see behind the scenes of, you know, what's.
So what would you, because I feel like we've gone off on a tangent, but it probably plays into, I guess, mitigating that whole burnout process. And if you were going to give a business owner, or let's say just in the hair and beauty space, idea on how to address this, because you may have planted the seed, how would you go about it? Do you ask the client first? Do you put out a poll in terms of, you know, if you're considering changing your trading hours?
See, I get, in my honest opinion, I think when you get to a point of expertise and you've earned your stripes, you should be the one calling the shots.
So you as the stylist, or
if you're in
therapist, if you're in demand, you've got a fully booked column. It doesn't matter if you started at 7 a.m. or 3 p.m. and worked till
correct.
midnight.
I mean, obviously you'd have a conversation with your clients.
Of course.
You know, and find out,
Yeah.
you know, what your demographic is.
I think the real trend from what I'm reading at the moment, and I think that this has been a big hook for how businesses have been able to attract certain employees, because there's no question, I know it's really tough out there to employ. That's you know, no news, it's been like that for a long time. But from what I'm seeing is they are pointing out the benefits. And I know we're going to talk about this in another podcast about team building, but I just want to touch on this, that they're talking about work-life balance. They're
Correct.
talking about having Saturdays off. They're talking about 4-day weeks. So they're talking about high commission, like a bit of a trade-off. And it's hard. I think it would be hard for some businesses to compete with that they just
100%.
surrender to it.
But I feel like we've done it and it works.
Yeah.
So we've been fluid in the flexibility.
Were you scared doing it?
Not really, because I was also learning from the girls in America.
Yeah.
And I knew that we had the demand there.
So I think
And
of like...
can I be
go.
honest as well? We ended up being so much more, the salon was so much more productive by opening up hours that we weren't open.
Yeah, right.
So because we were open on the Wednesday night, we ended up being so much more productive.
Okay.
Now, what's happened, I've got 2 of my girls that are pregnant. So we had another meeting the other week because I was like, hey, are you guys going to be okay doing 2 late nights? And they just looked at me and they were like, you know, practically, you know, in tears going, I don't think I'm going to cope. So we just we can rejig it. It doesn't have to be set in concrete.
Yeah.
Because they also just really, really enjoyed having that 3-day weekend. But if it's not going to work, it's not going to work.
Interesting.
You know, so I was like, you know, obviously when you're a mum and you have kids, and especially Ash, who's been with me for 5 years, I mean, it doesn't really matter because, you know, once you're a mum and you're pregnant, your priorities are going to change.
Yeah.
In one way or another. So you just have to be open.
Forever.
And I know so many people pull me aside and be like, hey, how do you feel about it? And I'm like, I'm stoked. Like, how do you want me to feel?
Yeah.
You know, I'm so happy for them. We're just going to figure it out together and adjust.
Yeah,
you know, because
absolutely.
I know how I was made to feel when I felt pregnant. You know, when you become a liability to a business, it's funny how quickly people fucking turn on you.
Well, that's a minefield. I'm not sure I'm prepared to even talk about that part.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would never do that.
Yeah.
So again, coming to the burnout, because everyone's going to experience burnout, especially now with the expectation. And I think now, you know, I don't know, maybe because it's what you know, that social dilemma on Netflix, like what I'm interested in, that's what I keep seeing on my socials.
Yeah.
So I see now, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I see a lot of mums now are back in the workforce.
Yes.
You know, are striving.
It's
so many of our friends, everyone, we're all messaging each other going, are you okay?
Because the cost of living now
And next level. And this is where that work-life balance is really tricky because if you want to be, you know, better than average, or you want to send your kids to private school, you want to go on holiday where you don't have to stress, you're gonna have to do more than the above. So this work-life balance is I still haven't figured it out completely. Like I know myself, I still put in about, you know, 50, 60 hours a week. People probably wouldn't even see that. Like even sometimes when I've slipped to my stuff, they're like, really, you do that? You know, so I don't think, because I'm not physically working on doing clients.
Yeah.
If anything, I'm probably working a lot more now. Like sometimes I miss being on the simple days of being on the floor.
And just having a single focus.
It's so funny because when you're on the floor, you think you want something else, and then you get that something else.
I wish I could relate to you.
And you can't relate.
So I want to wrap this up, but to bring this all together, because I guess the topic was around work, burnout and recharge, and we touched on the Bali thing. We don't need to go, but I want to come back to the mid part, which is the burnout part. And we've talked about cause, we've talked about signs. But
What solution? Give me a solution.
I'm going to talk about the solution. So this is stuff that I'm sure most of our listeners have read. Whether or not they put it into practice is another thing. I am a stickler now for routine.
Same.
And being really mindful of my time. So by that, what I mean is routine. So for me, one of my highest priorities daily is exercise or doing some sort of movement. I don't think that's a choice. I actually think we all need to do something, and there's more and more evidence. I'm not going to come from a health perspective, but there's more and more evidence to say that is the root cause of hormone issues, particularly in women as they get older, if they're not moving. Right. So I have that date in my diary every day. I'm routine like it would have to take a lot for me to miss that. Well, not really sometimes actually. That's a bit of a lie. But most of the time it's...
Well, hang on. Routine. Even in Bali, you still got up and you still did it.
Yeah, I did. But it's in my diary. So I know from one day to the next what I'm doing.
For sure.
That's one thing. Food, nutrition, to me is another important thing, because I'm like, this is the stuff that we all know and we hear and we see it on Netflix, we see it on Instagram, but nutrition is so important.
So important.
That's another root cause of stress, I'm not talking about eating a bunch of kale every day. I'm just talking about having good nutrition, and I know that typical hairdresser life for sure. I've
so
seen
true.
it
That's
firsthand.
a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand and how bad it is. And I know...
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
But yesterday I went to go see a stockist.
And
I walked in. Okay, get this. She was mixing colour and eating lasagna while she was mixing colour. And I said...
That's a real...
Because she's not normally like that. I said, what is happening? Are you going back to... Because we joke... She's one that went from doing 40 clients a week to 20 clients. She was like, please. She goes, don't even go there. She got COVID last week or the week before, and she had to take the whole week off. Oh. Now, she's like a single operator, and she had to take a week off. So guess what? She had to rejig, get her 20 clients in, because it's not normally when I walk in there, she's doing one client. It's calm. I'm like, what is happening? It's giving me anxiety. I said, this is bringing, and it just brought me back to my trauma, because and she was doing 2 clients at the same time and eating while she's mixing up chemicals. So that you say that, and that's what our diet really was like. Yeah. It was like we would neglect our well-being,
and let alone that stress trigger.
And it used to be made to feel. That's why I if this is going to trigger someone, it's going to piss any business owners off. I'm really sorry, but it still fucking triggers me when I see their appointment schedule and they haven't booked in breaks for their staff. That should be illegal. That's what I'm saying, burnout.
It is.
How long do you think they're going to be able to sustain that for?
Well, when you're young, you can. You can.
But they don't, because these days they're just not putting up with it.
They're not putting up with it, but they can do it. Like, you get someone that's really happy to toe the line and do whatever they have to do to keep their job. They'll do it.
I feel like it's opposite.
Because purely because I'm not talking from a knowledge base, I'm talking from a physical...
See, I get the opposite. I keep getting the start because I'm connected to a lot of them.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are like, this is why I'm leaving.
They're leaving because they're aware that there's a better life out there.
100%. But they're also aware that it's not healthy.
It's not healthy.
Well, I believe that they physically can't, because that's what they're saying.
I don't think... it's not...
Like these days, I can't even do 38 hours a week with breaks. It's an ongoing joke.
So, routine. Routine is so important, and being really mindful of your time. We've talked about things like meditation. We've talked about buckets in the past. Dare I say that word? But it's really being, I think, when you're at work, you're at work. So, and I'm a true believer. Like, when you're at work, be at work. When you're at home,
be at home.
Switch off.
Put the phone down. Yeah. Engage with your family. Yep.
So make use of that downtime. because you've only got yourself to blame where you know.
Because that's where it spills over, and that's where the problems start.
Well, and then, you know, inevitably, if you're in an employed situation, you'll start blaming something else or someone
100%.
else for why you're in. So be mindful of that. Switch your notifications off. Just have that downtime, have that family time, reconnect. Or anyone that is thinking about physical activity, and I'm not talking wake up and run a marathon, go for a walk.
Do something.
Just do something. Get out and get
movement.
I think the fresh air part is really important.
Amazing.
And my other thing for me, this is not for everyone, I love having my animals around. That gives me that dopamine hit.
We know, they even followed you in Bali.
They really do. So that gives me a dopamine hit of a different kind. So that's kind of my daily feel good, you know. And funny, like my dogs, they have their funny little routine with me as well every day. So when I'm not around, that throws them out as well. So
Amazing. I love that. And for me, like, it's hard, but I'm still learning the ease of having it all. And I think also to any mum out there, just don't beat yourself up. Do the best that you can. And if you don't get things done, it's fine. Don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah.
You know, hustle will come in seasons and it will flow in and out. There's times that you're going to have to hustle, and then there's times that you're going to have to pull back so that you don't reach that burnout. Because I feel like it's so dangerous. Once you reach that burnout point, it really takes 10 times more. I've heard people say they've ended up in hospital.
Oh, for sure. There's the physical
The
disposition.
recovery of that is 10
Yeah.
times worse than just setting those little bite-sized boundaries in place.
Yeah.
Once you're aware of it, you know that it's there, then you can slowly implement it and just make it work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
So let's
anything
try
else
it.
you want to add to it? What are we going to add? We're going to leave anything in the list?
Well, I'm going to add in the show notes that book that I read, Bored and Brilliant.
Okay.
What are you going to
Alright.
add?
Well,
You have anything or not?
no, you've put me on the spot now. Diary?
I think your
Journal?
advice is the best advice.
Please, I'll give you a link to a digital diary. Start
That's a
mapping
good
out
one.
your daily routine. No, in all honesty, we've all got phones, iPhones. Put it in your diary on your phone. Like, set yourself a reminder. Be vigilant with, like, even your alarm. So if I'm going to leave one takeaway, when you know you're starting to suffer burnout of a different kind, is that constant, I'm going to hit the snooze button. And, you know, if you're not getting out of bed and, like,
There's something not.
getting into your routine, and you're like 1 or 2 days where you're hitting the snooze
Love
button's
this.
fine.
So this is
But
more
yeah.
about routine rather than setting goals.
Yeah.
Love that.
Have that routine, because then the rest
We'll
will
set
fall
you
into
up for
place.
success.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for the next one, and
See you later.
see you later.